Students, welcome back. I hope you guys are all doing well. We're getting ready here for SAT class number 7, where we will take the proctored practice test for the April 2019 exam. Can everybody give me a thumbs up or a hello when you guys get into the chat, when you guys see the live stream? If you guys are watching the recorded version, feel free to ask questions in the comment section below. One of our teachers or teaching assistants will, of course, get back to you as quickly as we can. So again, guys, just for those that are tuning in live, make sure that you guys let me know who's here. For today, remember that we will need the April 2019 SAT exam ready to go. So on top of saying hello, can everybody please give me a thumbs up if you guys have that test with you, that test form. And then what we did last class, if you remember, we were looking for the the SAT test number 8. If you guys could have that open as well, that would be great. And then we will start our discussion here, guys. Okay, so what we're going to do here with test 8 is we are going to... Lighting on. Okay, so what we're going to do... Great, Anna, thank you for letting me know that you're here. Great. Okay, guys, again, as you guys get into class, please make sure to give me a thumbs up if you're tuning in live. For those that are not, please feel free to comment below. So the first thing that we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to talk to me a little bit about how your SAT Test 8 went. Remember, part of the homework from the last class was complete Pass 1 for the remaining math with a calculator questions. And then to complete, go back to the beginning with the amount of banked time you have. Remember, we were going to write down 5 questions correct, right? Incorrect. Stephanie, Anna, thanks, guys. Welcome. So how'd that go for everybody? Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Tell me how that went for the SAT Test 8. And then on top of that, what I would like you guys to do is we're going to have you guys plug in your answers to Test 8 in just a second. Let me make sure that that's posted, the materials for today. But again, while we're waiting here, guys, and while everybody's getting ready to go, can everybody just let me know how you guys felt about that Test 8? How was the test form? You know, obviously getting prepared and ready to go for that. When you went back and plugged in and found the easiest answers, what was the kind of the overall reaction from that? If you guys wouldn't mind sharing for those that are tuning in live, that'd be great. If you guys have comments when you're watching the recorded video, please make sure that you comment as well. Okay, and then I'm going to add, so this is something that this is not added to the files. Give me one sec here. Okay, you know what, actually. I'll just add it to the comments section in the chat. So guys, if you've not taken a look at this yet, what I'd like everybody to do so for homework, so what I'd like everybody to do you guys, there might have been some confusion there from the last class. So what I wanted you guys to do was to go 16 through 20, 21 through 25, 26 through 30, and then 31 through 38. Did you guys get a chance to do that, or did you think that you were only going up through 30? Because then I wanted you to come all the way back and double back and do the banked time for SAT Test 8. It's not a huge deal if you didn't do it yet, but here are these advanced score reports for Test 8. So if you guys click this link and scroll down a bit, I'm going to post this in the chat as well, or in the comment section as well for those that watch it after. But advanced score reports, Test 8. Okay, and yeah, it's okay, Anna. So if you guys got confused, all I wanted you to do, so we won't take too much time. I'm going to explain how to look at these score reports when you're done, because it'll be something that I ask you guys to do for the April 2019 test as well. But if you guys look in the background of my screen, does everybody see how these score reports are going to work? The beauty of this drill, let me show you guys down here. Okay, the beauty of this drill when you plug in your answers. Anybody else? How did everybody else feel about test number 8? We started it last class. If you get a chance to look at it, that'd be great. But when you look at this score report, a couple things I want to point out. One is on the real test, you can plug in. So you guys will see this is the math no calculator section, which we've already done. and then we had the math with a calculator section. And when you plug in your answers, the goal is to, as you do this drill, and you don't have to just stop with test 8 or the April 2019 test that we do in class. When you do this drill, what you can really look for is to say, okay, I know which questions I didn't know how to do, so let me go back and review those questions. But more importantly, you can say to yourself, okay, these were past 1 questions, or these were past 2 questions. How do I make those past 1 questions next time? What do I need to do to review? Or if I didn't know something altogether, what do I need to do to review something that whether we covered it in class or you had to go back and look through the book, the SAT book, right, our tutorials, and the app, the StarU app and the books have every piece of content that's ever been administered on the SAT math section. And so it's your job, if we don't cover it in class, to just go back and review it in the same way that we've reviewed every other section. So for those that are in live, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if that makes sense? One thing I should point out about these score reports, guys, is when you plug these in for the math section, there's a note up here. It says important note for the SAT math sections. We have all of these listed out, and this is just so the score report can read your score and then it can post your score at the top. We have all these listed out in decimals, but just so you know, if you have like 3/2, 3 halves instead of 1.5 here, that still works. Okay, so you have to make the conversion. The only reason this says 1.5 and not 1.5 or 3 halves is so that it can properly score the whole test for you. But if you see a decimal and you realize your answer is different because you have an improper fraction, does this make sense, guys? You have an improper fraction like 0.8, right, would be 4/5, or even a fraction altogether. 25.4, that could be an improper fraction as well, right? So if you see that situation, just know that you can have improper fractions on the test, right, where you get something like, 39/4. But we just, for the purpose of the score report, when you plug your answers in, just make sure that you know that those will be in decimal form, and the only reason for that is so that it properly scores your test. Okay. So again, why don't we do this? So for everybody that's rather than go through this, hopefully everybody understands the score report. Rather than take time to plug in your answers today, we'll do that for the April 2019 test at the end of class for the math with a calculator section. For right now, can everybody just give me a thumbs up or say good to go if you are, so when you've done the math test, right, when you go back, make sure, and Anna, if you didn't complete it yet, that's okay. Just make sure you go back and you finish past 1, then you go all the way back to the beginning with your banked time, you do all of past 2, and then you guess on any remaining questions that you haven't answered yet. And then I want you to plug your answers into the score report for both math without a calculator and math with a calculator, and then send it to us when you've completed the homework and when you've completed the score report. Does that all make sense, guys? Any questions on that? Again, if you don't have any questions, just let me know. It's just say good to go. If you're watching the recorded version after class, after the live stream, if you're watching the recording, just comment below if you have any questions. Otherwise, just say good to go, and we'll keep going. We'll keep moving on. Okay, so after the test day, we're going to cover some homework and some content that you guys had for homework. And then we are going to do some new lessons. And then remember that at the end of class today, we have the April 2019 SAT Math with a calculator test. It's the same test form that we've been working out of for the last 7 weeks, seven classes. Okay, so April 2019 SAT test. I'm going to post this again in the comments and in the chat. If you guys have not printed this out already, please make sure that you do. And then... Great, Dia, Ty, great, thank you. April 2019 SAT test. Okay, guys, so that's posted now in the chat, and I'm going to post it in the comments below as well. Can everybody just say, I have it, or I printed it, whatever you want to say. And if you're watching the recording, just say the same thing in the comment section. But can everybody say, I have this test right now ready? Because we're still going to spend about 45 minutes going through new tutorial work and new app work, stuff in the StarU app, and that's covered in our tutorial. But at the last hour of class today is going to be spent doing the math with a calculator test. And so everybody needs to make sure that they have that printed out and ready to go. So just say, I have it, if you have it, and then let's get into some more tutorial work. Great, guys. Thanks for the comments. It's perfect. Perfect. Okay, so for homework last time, we had the factoring homework problems and the common denominator homework problems, as well as Algebra Worksheet number 3. So what we're going to do first, and I'll pull this up on my screen, what we're going to do first is we're going to do Algebra Worksheet number 3. That can be found on the digital copy. If you're using the app, it's in the advanced content section of the app. If you're using the book, this would be page, or right around page, depending on which copy of the book you have, right around page 386, 387. It should just say Algebra Worksheet number 3 at the top. Okay, can everybody give me one more thumbs up, guys? One more thumbs up to say that you guys are at Algebra Worksheet number 3. This was part of the homework. Just like before, I'm going to read off the answers. I'll try to post them then in the chat and in the comment section, or the chat as well. And then we will, and I'll read them off out loud, obviously. And then if you guys have any questions, we'll go through any questions you guys have on these and then go from there. Okay, so this is Algebra Worksheet number 3. Thumbs up if you guys are good to go with this. And let's get started. Okay, so number 7 on Algebra Worksheet number 3. Number 7 is C, and again, I'll post these in the group. Number 12 is C, so 7 is C, 12 is C. 17 is one of the student-produced response questions. 17 is 1. The answer is 1 for 17. And 18 is 80. Okay, so again, it's C, C, 1, and 80. Let me type that in here. C, C, 1, 80 for no calc problem. Algebra. So you guys, I just read off the algebra worksheet problems for the no calc, right? We have the X through the calculator. Okay, so does anybody have any questions on those? Again, CC, 1, and 80 are the 4 answers for the no calc problems. Does anybody need to go over those 4 problems? Any questions on those 4 problems, guys? If you guys are good to go, can you say good to go with those 4 questions? Yeah, number 17, Dia, absolutely. We can definitely go over 17. Let's do that first. Okay. So 17 is it's an interesting question because you can actually solve it in 2 different ways. Remember when we talked about this last time with the word equivalent and solutions to the questions, right? You can do the same thing on number 17, although it doesn't look the same. As you get better and better at plugging in numbers is how we call it, right? That's when we see those words like equivalent. As you get better and better at this, it's going to be more and more, I think you're going to find it easier maybe to solve some of these questions using this pick numbers idea rather than using it in a traditional algebraic way. So it says a ring toss game at an arcade calculates each player's score in points. And again, guys, this is Algebra Worksheet number 3, the no calculator section. So before you get to the calculator icon, we're just on the no calc section, number 17. Okay, it calculates each score's points, y, based on the number of successful ringers, x. If y equals x plus 5, so one thing to remember, guys, is we've talked about this when we did the linear equation section, y equals mx plus b is the single most important formula that you guys can remember. So even though this might not apply to this specific question, better understandings of this is going to be crazy helpful. Okay, how many additional ringers are needed for each extra point in the game? So anytime we have an increase, right, this 5, y equals x plus 5. Okay, this 5 is constant. That's the y-intercept, that's the constant, and that's where we start. So what this is saying is that if x is 0, number of successful ringers, if x is 0 ringers, you get y points. So you start out with 5 points, right? Because if you have 0 ringers of x, you're left with 5, right? That's what the y-intercept stands for. Now the question is, how many additional ringers are needed for each extra point in the game? Okay, so each extra point in the game. So what we notice is if we have 1 additional ringer, if we set x equal to 1 instead of 0, now all of a sudden we get y is equal to 6. And so for each additional point, and this is what we call the slope, right? As x goes up 1, y goes up 1, and that's where we see the slope. We know that the slope is 1, so each extra point, that's what the slope is. Every point or every increase or every decrease, if you have a negative slope, is based on how many points it takes x to change y. Yeah, does that make sense? So that's why. So again, when we have x is equal to 0 here, x is equal to 0, we get y equals 5. When we add an additional ringer from x equals 0 to x equals 1, we've added 1 ringer, and our points go up from 5 to 6. Does that make sense? The more, again, guys, going forward, it's a great question to go over. And D, I know you already do super well in these math sections as it is, but one of the things that's extremely important to go over is making sure that y equals mx plus b is just like, it's just like concrete in your mind. It just can't leave, because the better you understand that formula, the better just how it works. You're going to be extremely successful in both the no calc and the calculator section. So again, great question. All right, guys, so that's algebra worksheet number 3, the no calc section. Let's keep going, the calculator section. So number 2 on the calculator section, number 2 is A. And by the way, guys, if you're watching any of the recorded videos, make sure that you just ask the questions in the comments section if you have other questions for the no calc beyond just number 17. Okay, but number 2 on the calculator section just below this, number 2 is A. Number 4 is D. So 2 is A, 4 is D. 12 is D as well. 13 is D, so A and then 3 Ds in a row. 17 is D, that's 4 Ds in a row. And remember on the SAT, that's actually a good point to make. On the SAT, it's not uncommon to find things, probably not 5 in a row, but it's possible. But the SAT does throw those in there where you see 4 of the same letter in a row. So don't be psyched out by that. That happens more often than you think. So again, A and then 4 Ds in a row. 24 then is B. 27 is A. 28 is D, and 30 is B. Okay, so again, I'll type these in. A, B, and 1, 2, 3, 4 Ds, B, A, B, A, D, B. All right, guys, so those are the answers for those questions on the calculator portion. So again, guys, do you have any questions on any of the calculator algebra worksheet? So all of these question types are going to come up on the test today on the math calculator section. So if you have questions on these now, I guarantee that these come up. A lot of these same types of questions come up. And so it's really, really important that you ask them now. And absolutely, let's go over, we're going to go 13 and 24 were 2 of the questions so far. So let's look at 13. Guys, 13 is just a really poorly worded question. And I'll just explain 13. And give me 1 sec here. And then you said 24 as well. 24 is a much better question. 13 is one where it's almost like, the tutorial and the worksheet is trying to trick you in some ways on number 13. So don't overthink that one too much. The reason that the answer, and I'll pull it up on my screen here in just a second, the reason that the answer is what it is rather than probably what you answered, I forget what that is. Give me 1 sec, guys, sorry. Okay, the reason that we get the answer that we do for number 13 is because of this last little bit here. So on 13, it says a car rental company charges a certain amount of money, D dollars per day, $25 per day to rent a car, plus 25 cents per mile driven. Which of the following, so this per day, and as what's tricky, it says which of the following expressions represents the cost in dollars to drive a rented car M miles per day for D days. So it's M miles per day. So it's like 25 miles, right, per day. And that's why the answer has to be D instead of what most people put as C, right? And in this one, did you put C? Most people put C, but the answer is D because you have to multiply that 0.25 by miles per day times the number of days. And so it's really tricky. It's almost like the SAT does do that, and that's why we include it in the tutorial. But it's still one of those questions that I wish the SAT wouldn't do it, because that's when students have the realistic right to kind of question, like, why is this important? It's important because they want you to be as focused as possible on every word of the question, but that seems to be a little bit more excessive. So don't worry too much about that one. But 24 is a very important question. And again, I can't stress enough how often you guys will continue to see this expression, right? When nothing is squared, when we have two variables, this all of a sudden D plus 0.66t equals 20, right? If we subtract the 0.66t, because t is time, which is always equal to the x-axis, we subtract 0.66t, and all of a sudden we have an equation, d equals negative 0.66t plus 20. What do we know? That looks very similar to our y equals mx plus b. Okay, so again, one thing to note is that anytime you have one variable, right? Anytime you have, or rather, two variables that are both not squared, in all likelihood, on almost every circumstance, you're going to get a y equals mx plus b equation. Okay, and so what this asks is, which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 20 in this context? Well, 20 is our y-intercept, so that's the value that we're starting at. And it says she used the equation above to approximate d distance in miles remaining in her trip t minutes after she has left Boston. Okay, so what that says to us is that she's already driven for, right? She's already driven for 20 miles, because if we put in t equals 0, when she starts tracking this, she's already driven 20 miles. So it's not the initial speed, it's not the distance in miles between Boston and Concord. Right, it's got to be D, right? Did we say D for this one? Is it B, the distance? Oh, no. It's context, wait. She has from Boston, Concord, choose the equation about the approximate distance remaining in her trip after she left Boston. Oh, yeah, guys. So it's 20 miles. It's the distance it's B, right? Because every moment that you go, this is going to be, because it's a negative slope, you have 20 miles, Anna, right? And then you're going to subtract 0.66 times 1 minute times 2 minutes and so on, and eventually you'll get to 0 minutes or 0 miles left over. But so the starting value is 20, so you're 20 miles away, and every minute you drive, you get closer and closer to your destination. So the distance left traveled is less than 20. You're going down as you go. Does that make sense, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay, and if it does make sense, here's what I want to do. I know that you guys did some factoring homework and some common denominator homework. I want to talk about those, but beyond what we talk about here, I also want to talk about some new concepts and some new chapters. So what I'd rather do before we go on to that, let's just make sure we get through these new chapters before we get into the common denominator, before we get into the homework from last week. You guys have seen a lot from that algebra worksheet, so hopefully you feel pretty comfortable with that. But before we get into the other homework, again, factoring and common denominators homework that you had for class today, let's get into the new chapters first. So can everybody go, and this is again in that advanced algebra section, this is on right around page 400, depending on which tutorial you're using. Or it's in the working with polynomials section of the advanced content within the app. Okay. Anna, does that make sense? Ty, are you guys following along? Can everybody give me a thumbs up who's in here live for today? And again, if you're going to watch the recorded lesson, just make sure that you ask the questions in the comments section so that we know what you're talking about. It might even be good if you know how to timestamp it so we know where you're talking about. Right, you can just say like at this time, what is this answer, or whatever. You guys can do that as well. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is how the SAT, along with linear equations, we really need to discuss this idea of working with polynomials. And again, it's piggybacking off of everything we've talked about in terms of Algebra 2, factoring, all that kind of stuff. But it's very, very important to understand how these things work, and it's actually going to piggyback into our graphs of functions and functions chapters that we're going to do here in a second as well. So the SAT loves to throw things at you that look like this, ax to the n, and everybody freaks out because rather than thinking about this in terms of factoring, where this could just be 1x squared, right, or just x squared, we think about it as ax to the n. And so you guys have probably seen this. Anytime you see this word, the following equation has constants for coefficients, constants for coefficients. Can everybody give me I've seen this, or a thumbs up if you've seen something that looks like ax squared plus bx, right, plus c, and that throws us off. But in reality, that could just be written as 1x squared, where a is equal to 1, right, plus 4x, right, plus 3. And now we get an equation, x squared plus 4x plus 3, that looks very familiar and is very easy to factor. Same thing goes with ax to the n, right? That all of a sudden looks way harder than it is. But all you need to know is what these things represent. So a, right, is just the constant out front, it's just the coefficient number out front, coefficient. And that number could be anything. You could put a 5 out front, you could put a 1 out front. X is just your normal x value, and then n is very important. It's what we call the degree of the function. And I'm sure you guys remember this from Algebra 2, but let's talk about where you see the degree of the function. Okay? And this is very important. When you have a degree of a function, okay, that's representative of how many solutions of x there will be in that equation, and it's always the largest exponent. So for example, if you have x to the fourth, let's change that. If you have x squared, if you have x squared plus 4x to the third plus 2x minus 1, when we ask for the degree of this function, degree, and I have no idea if that's actually factorable or if the solutions are real or imaginary for those that remember that, the degree is just the highest exponent. So 2 might be leading off that polynomial, but in reality, the 3 is the highest degree. It's the highest exponent, so the degree of this function is 3. And what that tells us is that we should have 3 solutions to this equation. If, and you'll see this in the graphs of functions section here in a second, but if we see a 3 here, and we have 3 real solutions, I have no idea if the one I just made up there has 3 real solutions, but if you see 3 and you see the degree, it means that it's going to cross the x-axis 3 times. Okay, if those solutions are real solutions and you see this, okay, it means it's going to cross the x-axis 3 times. And again, guys, I can't stress how important this is. Because when you see this, if you understand working with polynomials, if you understand this, these are what we call hard concepts, right? We see this all the time, hard concepts. Extremely easy questions. And what we mean by that, what the tutorial means by extremely easy questions, is that on the surface, ax to the n looks very complicated, or even, right, ax squared, all this stuff, that looks complicated. But if you just know the terminology and you understand what's going on, all of these questions, like this question right here that I just drew out with the graph, this would be somewhere like 21 through 30, right, or 11 through 15 on the math no calc section. These would be very high level questions, and all they might ask you is how many solutions or how many real solutions does the graph of f have, right? If this was the f of x graph, it says how many real solutions does the graph of f of x have, and it's very easy, right? There's 3 times where it crosses the x-axis, so you might see terms like roots, right? You might see terms like x-intercepts. You might see terms like solutions, and we talked about this in the factoring section during last class. But these all mean the same thing, and it's all where the x-axis is crossed on a graph. So again, when you see questions like this, right, ax squared plus bx plus c equals dx squared plus ex plus f, guys, they're just making up those numbers, right? They're saying that those numbers are, the variables out front, or the constants, the coefficients out front are just made up numbers. And so if we just take a deep breath, and rather than thinking of it as like ax to the n, when did we learn that? I've never seen that before. And we just really understand that a is just a constant. Anytime you see this word constant, it just means it's a number. It's just the same number, 3x squared. So 3 is equal to a. And if you know that, then all of a sudden these questions become really easy. So it says x, right, on this example question just below this on 400, it says x to the 2x squared plus 3x is equal to ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d. And this one says, what is the value of b? Now that one might be easier to determine, but sometimes we get students that say, what is the value of c? And that's actually the easiest one to determine. So all we're going to do is we just want to get whatever's on the left side of the equation, and this is true of any question that you see like that's written like this. So if you guys see this, and you will on a lot of SAT exams, if you see this expression on the right with coefficients, just line it up on the other side of the equation and match it up. So as an example, we're going to distribute. We get x times 2x squared, so this is equal to is equal to 2x cubed, right? 2x cubed. And guys, what do you know? We have one x cubed factor on the other side. And then we distribute the x into the 3x, so we get plus 3x squared. And now most students, freak out at this point, plus bx squared, plus cx, plus d. But guys, if we don't have any variables, right, if we don't have anything else, all we have to do is just say 0x, right? It just means that 0 was the thing that was being multiplied, so that's why we don't write that out. So the cx and the d just go away, but still, that could be written as 0x. So in this question, which again will show up in a very high level question, like 11 through 15 on the no calc section, or 8 through 15, it's so easy. All we had to do was basic distribution and then line it up and say, okay, well then a is equal to 2 because a and x, right? A and 2 are both in front of the x squared. A equals 2. B is equal to 3. C is equal to 0. And D is equal to 0. And these are very common types of questions on the test. So can everybody give me a thumbs up if this makes sense? Again, these are going to be questions that you see every SAT. It's not a question of if it's going to show up. This is not an obscure question. It's one that will show up every time on one of the two sections. Not necessarily on both sections, but on one of the two, you'll see this every time. And they're such easy problems. So if that makes sense, guys, can everybody try number 15 just below that? So if that makes sense, can everybody try number 15 just below that? And you'll see, guys, this is 15, no calculator, right? Which means it's supposedly one of the hardest questions on the entire no calc section. It'd be 15 out of 15 before you start the free response questions. And then the free response start over in terms of difficulty. So if you guys can just recognize what we just went over there on that first problem, it's the exact same problem just below it. Okay, and then when you guys are done with number 15, can you just say done? Let me know that you're done so that we can keep moving forward. Okay, so look at number 15. And then say done when you guys are done moving, when we're ready to move forward. Okay, you guys remember, just say done when you guys are done with those. But I know we can move on. When you're done with that, I guess that's just that one problem, right? Great, thanks Anna, that's great. Okay, looks like everybody's finishing up. So hopefully everybody sees this, right? If we look at this question, it's 15. Amazingly, if you know this, if you have a general understanding, I should say this, a broader understanding of Algebra 2, this test is so easy. The math test on the SAT is so easy because so much of it is Algebra 2 based, and it's really about understanding what each of these things are, right? They know that you know how to factor and FOIL when it's just a basic problem, but do you really understand what's going on in this question? So here we see a little bit different situation where you have B and B. That doesn't mean anything, right? It just means that B happens to be equal to the same thing. B equals B, right? They're not trying to confuse you in any way. It just means that the two middle terms will be equal. And then we're going to just take the same steps forward, right? We're just going to distribute. We do a FOIL, right? Going back to basic algebra. So we get x squared, right? Plus outside, right? So minus ax. Then we get plus 4x. And then we say plus 4a. And we can solve for a because now if we have this 4a here and we have what is the value of a, well this 2, we see that a is not connected, so this a is just a constant, so it's going to be multiplied, and on the other side in the corresponding position we have 2. So we just get 4a is equal to 2, we divide by 4 on both sides and we get a is equal to 2 over 4, which is equal to 1/2. Oh, should that be minus 2? Oh, minus a, sorry guys, minus, yeah, we don't have that, so this should be negative 4. Yeah, negative 4a, minus 4a. And so we get negative 1/2, and the answer then is just B. But does everybody see that? I mean, the math, if you understand that, this is number 15. And this is true of so many of the questions on the SAT math, particularly on the no calculator section. If you just have a general understanding of what to do and you don't freak out about, oh my God, where are these B's and A's coming from? I've never seen that in school. And you just recognize that everything on the right side needs to equal everything on the left side, and that's where the equal sign comes in. Right? And then it's just very, very easy solving for a very, what we, again, call a hard concept, extremely easy question. How many of you guys got that one right? Who got that question right? Who got that question right? Okay, and if you did get it right, let me just show you a few other things. Okay, so if you got that question right, that's great. If you didn't, just give me a thumbs up if you know that if you now understand how to do it. If we go a little bit further down, we see questions like number 9. And there's two things to note about 9. Right away, we notice the word equivalent. Okay, right away, we notice the word equivalent. And all we're going to do here, guys, is we're just going to distribute. Okay, but the beauty, by the way, guys, can everybody give me a thumbs up? Do you guys all understand how to do that question, number 15? If you didn't get it right, does everybody understand how to do it? Okay, and again, if you're watching the recorded version, can you guys just let me know, does this all make sense? Do we do the math wrong there, guys? Let me see. Plus 14 minus 14a, x squared. Give me 1 sec, guys. Let me see. If a is equal to negative 1/2. Oh, yeah, dude, the math's wrong there somewhere, guys. You guys can see it's simple mistakes. Let's see. Is equal to 2 plus 2, negative 4a. Oh, guys, sorry. That's got to be bx now, right? That's got to be b plus 2. So this b doesn't have an x right here. So that b plus 2, this should actually be negative 4a is equal to b plus 2. Does everybody see that? Negative 4a is equal to b plus 2. Guys, I'm way overdoing it here. So here's what we should say. Does everybody see? You're right. So Ty, that's exactly right. It's not b. Sorry. Everything we did is right here. But let me set this up again. I rushed to judgment. You guys see? And this is a good reason to make sure that you don't make simple mistakes. What I should have done is say x squared minus ax plus 4x minus 4a, right, is equal to x squared plus bx plus b plus 2, right? Those are all equal to each other. Does everybody see? Because b doesn't have an x attached to it, we have to set that equal. So all we need to do now, guys, is, and we can start with any value, start with 0 maybe, just plug in numbers for a, right? So if you plug in 0, does that work? And see if it does. So if you get x squared minus 0x plus 4x minus 0, well, that doesn't work because we know we have a 2 here, right? And so, Ty, does that make sense? Just plug in numbers here. Before we even started this question, I said, look out for plugging in numbers, and then I didn't go forward. If we plug this in, we get x squared minus negative 2x plus 4x, right? Minus 4 times negative 2. And it becomes pretty obvious. Okay, and then we get x squared minus negative, so plus 6x, right? Plus 4x minus 8. Does that all make sense? And then we get x squared plus 10x minus 8. And we get x squared. Now I'm running out of room. Guys, does it make sense? Sorry, I realize I'll come back to it. I'll send a picture of the. I realize that we made a simple math mistake somewhere. Before we take too much time on this one question, does it make sense what we're doing? That we're trying to line up the variables on the left and right. This is a good learning experience for everybody. Don't just write out 2, right, like this on the right side and assume that that's going to be correct, because you'll make simple math mistakes and not know why you made those simple math mistakes. And when you just write out 2, this is an even better reason. I don't even take my own advice. When I take these exams, can everybody give me a thumbs up if this is all, if you guys are seeing this? I didn't even take my own advice here, but if you guys go and look at this 2, right, I didn't write out everything in between. And when you don't write things down on the test form, it means that you can't easily track back and figure out where you made your mistake. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if at the very least you guys understand why it's so important to write everything out? Because I only wrote down this 2, I didn't know where I made the simple mistake. I don't know where the math mistake came in, so I had to go all the way back to the beginning. And in terms of what we're talking about with this pass 1, pass 2, that's the type of question that's just mind-numbing, right? Where we just sit there and toil and toil and toil. In this case, we probably wouldn't have, because I would have just gone with B and gotten it wrong. But again, writing everything out so that you can, when you don't get an answer that shows up in the answer choices, you can quickly go back and be like, oh, that's a positive instead of a negative. So again, the good learning experience there more than anything of just me being dumb and not writing everything out. But I hope you guys take something away from that these questions in terms of lining up the numbers on the left and lining up the coefficients maybe on the right, that should be a pretty easy, straightforward lesson. if you don't follow through and you don't do the things that we talk about in terms of accuracy, writing things out, then you see that it's really easy to make simple mistakes. Okay, real quick, guys, let's go to number 9 because we do have one other lesson to cover with these functions. So, guys, on number 9, it says, which of the following is equivalent? So I want you guys to be aware, equivalent, right, always means that we can just plug in numbers if necessary. On this one, it's probably easier not to, because remember that if you have a distribution thing that looks like this, you just distribute to every number. So we start with the 2x and the x squared, and we're just going to distribute 2x into every number. Just be really careful. This is another one where you can make a simple mistake. We get 2x times x squared is just 2x cubed. Okay, then we multiply it by 2x times 2x would be plus 4x squared. Right? Then 2x minus 3, so minus 6x is what we're multiplying those. And now we turn our attention to the negative 1. Again, be careful with your signs. Negative 1 times x squared is minus x squared. Negative 1 times 2x is minus 2x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is plus 3. Again, at that time I did write everything out, and I think we're going to get it right because of that. Right now we just combine like terms. So we get 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus x squared, so plus 3x squared. Right, minus 6 minus 8, so minus 8x plus 3. And again, number 9 is still relatively difficult. If you guys don't remember how to do that problem, just remember that you can always plug in the word equivalent, right? If you see the word equivalent, you could just say x equals 3. Now, it's difficult because this is a no calculator question. So on this one, they really do want you to know the algebra 2 and the distribution behind it. But you could still, if you have good mental math, plug in x is equal to 3 and solve for what it is when x is 3 up here and the expression up here, and then solve for the answer choices. And it really shouldn't take that long, to be honest, at number 9 if you have really strong mental math. So can everybody give me a thumbs up or 2 thumbs up if that all makes sense, guys? And I apologize for number 15. I was trying to go too fast because we do need to get in another lesson here before you guys start the test, and we do need to talk about the test a little bit as well. Okay, great. So the last thing that we're going to cover before we talk about the test and strategy again, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to go to functions, the functions worksheet. So can everybody go back to basic functions, which can be found? Sorry guys if I'm giving you a headache here. Basic functions can be found here on page. Guys, can everybody go back to page 326 for me? Page 326. And then let me know when you guys are at that point. 326, and let me know when you guys are at that point. Okay, just say good to go when you guys are at the basic functions. It should look like this. It's right around 326. If you're using the app, it's basic functions. This would be in the basic content of the app if you guys are using the app. If you're using the digital copy of the book or the book itself, it'd be right around page 326. And just say good to go for those that are watching live so that I know who is participating. All right, guys. So the last thing that we're going to talk about before we get into the test today is just something we call basic functions. And it's really, really important that everybody has a strong handle on basic functions because it's the exact same thing as you guys have always seen. It's just the only thing, and again, teachers don't do a great job of explaining this, but the only thing that's different about a function, and the way that they explain it is, well, f of x just equals y. And that's true, but as you get into higher level functions, that doesn't really help you that much. And the reason for that is because it looks different in certain notations. So what I want to do, rather than just say, well, and who's had this experience before? Whose teacher just said that, well, f of x just equals y, right? And then they move on, and that's all that they talk about. When that happens, that doesn't plan very well for what's to come with functions. And so the first thing that you guys need to know is that while it's true, f of x is set up equaling y, the notation that is to come looks different than it does when you use y or x and y rather than x and f of x. Okay, so specifically, when we see function notation, we can write this still, right? We have our t chart where we have x, our input values, and our y values. Nothing changes about that in terms of our x and our f of x, and that's why teachers list it out as f of x just equals y. But when you're in lower level algebra, right, when you're in lower algebra in freshman, sophomore year of high school, maybe even earlier than that, we see things that say when x equals, right, they list it out for us. When x equals this, right, when x equals 4, y equals what? Right, who remembers that? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you guys remember that notation? When x equals 4, y equals question mark, right? And then we go to our t table and we say when x equals 4, and we plug it in here, and we say 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So when x equals 4, y equals 11. With function notation, it looks different, and it's a way to write this in a shorthand form. Okay, and specifically, rather than saying when x equals 4, y equals what, they say this. They say f of 4, right? F of 4 is equal to something when f of x is equal to 2x plus 3. Right? So they'll give you what we call a function rule. The function rule in this case, right? Function rule, they'll give that to you, and that'll be f of x is equal to 2x plus 3. And when you see this, and again, this one makes sense for the most part. When we see f of 4, that means the exact same thing as what we saw when we used to have it written as when x equals 4, y equals what? That's the exact same thing we're looking at here. When f of 4 is equal to, we're just going to plug in 4 for all of our x values. Anywhere we see an x, we just plug in 4, and we again get 2 times 4 is 8 plus 3. So when x is 4, f of x is still equal to 11. But this is really important because f of 4 is something that you'd see in Algebra 2. What happens if you get something where you have this function rule, and you guys will see this below, but what happens when you see something like this, when f of a minus 3 equals 2? Again, the SAT is trying to throw things at you that are going to make you freak out more about the notation, and that's what I'm trying to explain from a concept standpoint. They're trying to make you freak out about the notation more than they're trying to make you freak out about the math. Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if that makes sense? And if you're watching the recording version after this, just feel free to comment. And this is such an important aspect of what we're trying to cover here, that the notation that the SAT throws is to see if you really understand Algebra 2 or the general concepts, or if you've just done so many foiling problems and f of x problems that you know how to do those problems, but you don't really know what you're doing, or you don't really know what it means or why you're doing it. So in a question like this, by the way, the function rule has remained the same, right? This function rule, they give you the function rule, and now they say f of a minus 3 over 2. Well, before, when we had f of 4, we just plugged in 4 for x, and that doesn't change with this notation. So before we had f of x, right? F of x was equal to 2x plus 3. Now we have f of a minus 3 to the 2. We're just going to say f of a minus 3 over 2 is equal to 2, and then we plug it in. Wherever we see x values, we plug in identical to whatever's listed in the parentheses. We just plug it in exactly how it's written, a minus 3 over 2 plus 3, right? And then the 2 over 2 times a minus 3, right, over 2, those 2's would cancel, and we get a minus 3 plus 3, and minus 3 plus 3 cancel. So if you can believe it, in that function rule, f of a minus 3 over 2 is just equal to a. When we plug in a minus 3 over 2 for x, we get f of x, right, or the y value is just equal to a. Can everybody say good to go if those all make sense? And then let's go through these examples together, and then you guys will have some lesson problems before we get into the strategy and taking that final test for the April 2019 exam. Okay, so this one says f of 2, right, 2x plus 3. This one's really straightforward. It's just saying, again, x, when x equals 2, y equals what? Or f of x equals what? That's what that notation means. And so we plug it in. We get 2 times 2 plus 3. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Right? Same thing here. We get 2 times 2 plus 3. We're just plugging in wherever we saw an x value previously. We just plug in parentheses or where that x value was, and we distribute it accordingly. Plus 3, right here, plus 3. 2 plus 3 is 5, so we can do that in the parentheses first. Times 2 is 10, so we get 10 plus 3 is equal to 13. So that's all the value for that. F of a, right? Well, if we had f of x before is equal to 2x plus 3, this one's extremely easy. F of a, just plug it in. That's the rule. you just plug that value in, so all you can get out of this is 2a plus 3. Okay, if you see f of g of x, okay, all you're doing, the f of x was just 2x plus 3, right? So f of g of x is just equal to 2 times g of x plus 3. Now, some of you guys are probably remembering that you could have another g of x function, right? G of x could be written out on the side as another rule where g of x, right, is then equal to 4x plus 1. Well, if that's the case, then after you've plugged in g of x here, then all of a sudden you can substitute and actually plug that in and solve. Okay, but until then, all you can do here, because we're not given this g of x function, all we're given is f of g of x, that's all we know. And we know the f function, but not g of x function yet. All we can say is f of g of x is just equal to 2g of x plus 3. Okay, be careful on a question like this as well. It says if f of x equals negative 1, what is the value of x? Now they've switched it, right? They're not looking for what's inside the parentheses. They're looking for what the value of x is. So again, before we had f of x is equal to 2x plus 3, and now they're also giving us that f of x is equal to negative 1. So we just say negative 1 equals 2x plus 3. We substitute the negative 1 for the f of x, and we solve. Minus 3 on both sides, minus 3. 2x equals negative 4, so x then equals negative 2. Okay, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if this idea of functions, function notation, it doesn't change anything about the problem. And so when you hear y equals 2x plus 3 is the same as f of x equals 2x plus 3, that's true at that level. But as you continue along in your math lives, your math careers, it changes it because the notation changes, and it's basically making it shorthand for how you have to write some stuff out. So when mathematicians would write it out, they don't have to say when x equals 3, y equals this. They would just say f of 3 equals this. And if you know the notation, it's suddenly very, very easy to do. Okay, so what I'd like everybody to do as a final step, I'd like everybody to go down to the lesson problems. There's 3 of them, 12 through 14. I'd like you guys to do those lesson problems, and I'd like you to tell me done when you guys are done with those 3. You guys are just doing those 3 questions. Those 3 questions, guys, and then you're going to let me know when you guys are done. Okay, looks like we got some people finishing up here. That's great. Okay, great, guys. So let's start going through these. Okay, so again, on these lesson problems, I want you to remember that these are the exact types of problems that are going to come up on the real test, right? So it's very, very important that you guys understand how to correctly identify these, but then quickly answer these, because with these functions questions, because it's an Algebra 2 concept, and Algebra 2 is labeled as a difficult, right? Y equals mx plus b, while it's a very important concept on the test, it's not one that's labeled as a particularly high-level question. They just really think it's important and want you to be able to do that, which is obvious, which is understandable. You spend so much time on y equals mx plus b in school that they'd want you to understand that. Now with functions, that's not necessarily the case. They're not going to throw out the hardest single function question at you guys while also knowing that it's a hard concept to begin with. So again, that's why I say that these are what we call easy questions if you know what the concept is actually referring to. Okay? Easy questions if you know what the concept's referring to. So on this first one, it just says f of 6, right? And we're going to see f of n equals n, right? It doesn't have to be f of x. F of 6 minus f of negative 6. Well, if we know that f of n is equal to n squared, then f of 6, right, is just equal to 6 squared, where we plug it in, right? And then f of negative 6, maybe think about doing these individually, right, is equal to negative 6 squared. So this would equal 36. In parentheses, this would also equal 36. So 36 minus 36 would just be 0. On the second one, it says, which of the following is equivalent to g of n plus 1? Now, be really careful, guys, because here we get g of n, right? G of n is equal to n squared minus n. And we're looking for g of n plus 1. So we're just going to plug g of n. We're going to plug in n plus 1. But be really careful, because this says n plus 1 quantity squared minus m plus 1. Now, most students just rewrite this as m squared plus 1. This has to be distributed, right? M plus 1 times m plus 1. We FOIL that out. Now we get m squared plus 2m plus 1 minus m minus 1, right? Don't be careful distributing that out. Okay, the minus 1 and the plus 1 cancel. The minus m and the plus 2m cancel one of the m. So we're left with m squared plus m. That's our final take for what g of m plus 1 equals. So what we're looking for is m squared plus m. Well, right away, we should be able to eliminate a and b. Does everybody see why? Because we don't have a 1 and a 3. Those are constant values, and both of ours have m values. If we look at f of m, right? F of m, what does that equal? Well, f of m is equal to just, m squared plus m, boom. Number 13 has to be c. Okay, and then the final one I'll just read off to you guys. The answer is B for the last one. Okay, so on the last question, all you're going to do is you have n squared, right? And you have n squared minus n. And we're going to plug in n squared minus n over here. So we're left with n squared minus n quantity squared with f of g of x, right? Or x squared, I guess, because it's g of x. Right, so it's x squared minus x, because that's the g of x part of it. and then this is the x that comes from the f of x, and then we just distribute that. So x squared minus x times x squared minus x, and that ends up being b. Oh, I guess we didn't even have to do that, right? We got the right answer right here. Okay, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if that all makes sense, guys? 2 thumbs up if that makes sense. 2 thumbs up if that makes sense. We're right on time, guys. It's going to be good. We might go a little over time today for this class, but it won't be too bad, so just hang tight. We're going to complete the math with the calculator section of the test now. So again, we've posted the calculator policy during last class or 2 classes ago. Please make sure that you have your calculator ready to go, and we're going to be looking at the April 2019 SAT exam. Okay, so April 2019 SAT exam, and specifically we're going to be looking at the final section of the test, section number 4, which is right here. Okay. And guys, as you get, so say good to go. Can everybody give me a thumbs up when you guys get to the point where you have this open and are ready? And when you are ready to go, can everybody give me a sense? So what are we trying to accomplish, right? What are we trying to accomplish before we start this math test? Because these are the notes that I want you to write down for right now, because we're together and we can talk about them. But what are we trying to accomplish with the 3-pass method? What's our whole goal with this? 3-pass, right? We're on the April 2019 math with calc section. What's the goal, guys? So what's the goal here? We want to continue to think about these math tests as a number of questions to answer correctly. So what I want you guys to do right now before we start, there are 38 questions on this test. I want you guys, just like we've talked about in the drills, to set your floor score. Based on your previous tests, what's a realistic number of questions that you want to be able to answer correctly, 100% accuracy, and that if nothing else, if you got all of those questions right and you had to guess on the remaining questions, how many questions do you want to answer correctly? The reason I bring this up is I would set our floor scores for most students, or for high-scoring students that want to do well on the math test. If you set a floor score today of getting 25 out of 38 questions right, 25 out of 38. Now again, in school, that would be a D in school. On this test, if you're accurate on those 25 and then you guess during the 3rd pass all the way down, you'll probably get an additional 3 questions right. So that leaves us at 28 out of 38, and that's in like the 650 math range. If you're trying to score higher than that, that's fine. Then set this goal score at 30 out of 38. But the whole idea of this on the first pass is to skip questions, and I've been very adamant about this. First pass, I want you to skip questions even early on, because if you only answer 3 out of the first 5, but you make no simple mistakes, I want you guys to strive for this, even if it looks like you can answer all those, because it gets you into a rhythm of being able to skip questions. On the first pass, if you skip 2 out of the first 5 questions, skip all time-consuming questions, right? And that includes word problems. I'm not disputing that questions 2 and 4, whatever the numbers are going to be easy when you come back to them. But I don't want you to do any word problems off the bat, because that leads to simple mistakes. And everybody saw that when we did the drill. Remember, can everybody give me a thumbs up? Everybody in the class had a simple mistake where they probably shouldn't have had a simple mistake on the last one, on test number 8 when we did this, because even if you get 5 out of 5 right on the first 5, you don't get into the rhythm of skipping then, or that's not your first thought. And so when the harder questions start to appear, 6 through 10 or 11 through 15, it becomes much more difficult to remember to skip in that moment. So skip all time-consuming questions, even if you know they're easy. Even if you know they're easy. For today's exam, guys, my goal for you is to be able to skip. I would love it if you guys would all skip 2 out of the first 5 questions. Skip 2 out of the first 5. Because again, I'm not disputing that those aren't going to be easy. But the best feeling in the world is when you go through the entire exam on the first pass and you get 20 questions right, and then you get to go back to the beginning and you still have easy questions left that you left over that are just word problems, but they're still easy questions. That's the best feeling in the world, because you know you're getting more of those right as well. Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if that makes sense? I would love you guys, if you could write this down in your notes so that when I'm not there, you guys still remember this, that I would love for you guys to skip 2 out of the first 5 questions. Okay, and again, that just gets you into rhythm and it reminds you like, okay, I want to be moving through and finding only the easiest questions first. I cannot stress how important this is. Only easiest questions first. Okay, and then when you're done with those easy questions and you've already gotten 20 out of 38 questions right, now you can come back and do the second pass. And this is where we're looking for time-consuming. This is where we want to do the time-consuming but not difficult questions, but not difficult. Time-consuming but not difficult. This does not excuse, though, to not skip questions. So if you come back on the second pass and you still have no idea, you don't even know really where to start with a question, or you do start it and you get 30 seconds in and you have no idea where you're going with that question, then you need to move on. The worst thing in the world, the best test takers in the world will continue to reiterate that the worst thing that they see is if they get stuck on one question and they can't get away from that one question. Just move on. That one question is not worth any more points than the easiest question on the test, so just keep moving. And then on the third pass, if we've accurately answered, right, third pass, if you've accurately answered, let's say 25 out of 38 questions, on the third pass, we guess, least used answer for all remaining questions. Guys, again, if you're able to do this effectively, your score will go up overnight with this math test. Because what we're telling you is that if to answer 25 questions, I'm giving you 55 minutes to do all 25, when you typically have 55 to do 38 questions. And then if you guess effectively, because you were accurate, if you guess effectively at the end, you get 3 additional questions right. 28 out of 38 is going to be somewhere in that 600 to 650 range every math test. Assuming you meet the same standard on the no-calc section, assuming you meet that same percentage standard on the no-calc section, you're at like a 600 to 650 on the math test. And again, it's not that hard to figure out how to get to a 700. Instead of 25 out of 38, you shoot for 30 out of 38 that you definitely know how to do, but you don't spend any time on the other 8 questions that don't look easy or don't look like you can be 100% accurate on it. You can't answer it without knowing that it's 100% accuracy. Okay, guys, so does that all make sense? Can everybody give me one final thumbs up? And again, we're focusing on the easy questions. Remember, as you start this test, you have your calculator. Don't do the time-consuming questions first. Put it in your plan, put it in your notes that you're just definitively, even if you know how to do the questions, you're going to skip 2 out of the first 5 questions to get on this roll of skipping questions, to remind yourself, hey, I can skip, I can move on. My only goal in this first pass is to find the rules-based easy questions that I look at it, I know exactly what to do, I answer that, and I'm going on. Because when you come back to the end of the test and you have that second pass and you have a bunch of banked time, already knowing you've answered 15 to 20 questions correctly, there's no better feeling in the world. And then guess what? You still have number 2 to go. Number 2 is supposed to be easy. I think it is going to be easy. But because you skipped it, you didn't make a simple mistake, you didn't spend any time on it, and hey, now you're coming all the way back to it and it's an easy question, and that's the best feeling in the world. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's get started here. I'm going to set the timer. You get 55 minutes, not an hour. Whoops, don't worry about that. Sorry, guys. Okay, you'll have 55 minutes on the clock. And if everybody's ready to go, can you guys give me one final good to go that you're ready to start the April 2019 SAT Math with a Calculator section, that you have that printed out and ready to go in front of you? Whoops. Yeah, and you guys will have 55 minutes. As soon as I see all the good to goes for the live stream, I'll start the clock. And if you guys have any questions, just for those that are watching the recorded video, just stop the video and ask the questions in the comments section before you start the test, and we'll be sure to answer it. Okay, but in any case, looks like everybody on the live stream is good to go. You guys will have 55 minutes to complete the math with the calculator section, and then I'll post additional information. So make sure that after you guys are done with this test, stay on the live stream if you're watching the live stream, because I'll have important information about the practice test this coming weekend that says as part of the schedule for this class. Remember, we don't have class this coming Monday because we have a practice test this Saturday, and I'll talk about whether or not, if you can't make that on Saturday, I'll talk about how you can make up that test. But in any case, I'll talk about that at the end. Make sure you stay on the live stream. 55 minutes for SAT Math with a calculator for the April 2019 test. And your time starts now. Good luck, guys. I'll give you guys updates as you go. Focus on the easy ones. Find 2 questions to skip in the first 5. Get on a roll. Find those rules-based questions first. Good luck, guys. Guys, keep it up. Okay, you're about 15 minutes in already, but just keep finding the easy questions. That's the whole goal in this. If you get stuck on one, again, skip forward, keep moving. The momentum builds when you just keep moving through the test. You can always come back to more questions. We have that banked time. Just keep finding easy questions. Don't get bogged down on any one question. You're about just a little less than 15 minutes way through. You're doing great. Find those easy questions. Keep working through it. Okay, you guys are coming up on the 15-minute mark, but don't forget about the floor score. If you've kind of forgotten about this idea of skipping questions and finding the easy ones, it's always time. There's always time to get back into it. Okay, so keep working hard. Make sure that you go and find those easy ones. If you feel like you're stuck on one, keep moving. Get that momentum going again and find some easier questions so that you get on a roll again. Okay, so make sure that you keep working on this. You guys have just over 15 minutes left. You're doing great. Find the easy questions. Hit that floor score. Be 100% accurate without worrying about the questions that you don't know how to do. Be 100% accurate on the ones you do know how to do. Keep it up, guys. You're doing great. Okay guys, we're coming down towards the end. You guys have about a minute and a half left, but don't let that phase you, okay? Try to find one more question that you know how to answer, and then with 30 to 45 seconds left, guess on the remaining questions. Okay, about a minute and a half left. You guys are doing great. You're almost done, and then you guys can take you don't have to think about the SAT for an extended period of time, okay? So again, minute and a half, find one more you can answer. If you can't, then go to find the best guessing letter, the one you've used the least, and guess that letter the rest of the way down. The goal is to hit that floor score. Keep it up, guys. You're doing great. Okay, about 10 seconds left, guys. Keep it up. All right, and that's it. Okay, guys, so great job. Great job getting through that. How'd you guys feel overall? How did everything go? So for those, again, try to stay online here. I know that we're going to be a little bit over time today, but try to stay online. How did it go? Did you guys feel okay about it? Did you feel overwhelmed? Did you feel what were some of the reactions coming out of the test? Did you guys feel like the past method, finding easy questions, worked well? I'd love to hear from you. And if you guys are watching the recorded lessons, just comment below. For those that are watching the live stream now, just comment in the chat. But if you guys have comments and you're watching the recorded lessons, just comment below the video so they know how you guys felt coming out of the test. While you guys are making your comments on this test, I posted the homework. So one of the things that you want to remember is that we have a practice test, so a proctored practice test this Saturday. This is our second one for the program. We want everybody to be there. Obviously, if you can't make it, that's understandable. But again, it's easy we want you to make sure that you simulate the test in as realistic an environment as possible. And that's what this Saturday is going to bring. For those that are watching the recorded lesson of this one, make sure that you guys take a practice test between now and the next lesson, between now and lesson number, 8. Okay, so again, we're taking a practice test this Saturday. And for those that are watching the live stream, then we won't have class until next Thursday, so no class on Monday. Okay, because we want you to take a practice test on Saturday. For those that are watching, and remember guys, going forward, we're going to have a practice test every other weekend for the remainder of, until we get through this long stretch of SAT and ACT tests, particularly for the senior class, who has been working so diligently and continues to get their tests canceled. We obviously don't want that. So yeah, we'll have a practice test this Saturday, and I've posted all the homework. You guys can see that. You guys will see that when you get to the homework, and then you'll have additional homework on the lesson chapters that we covered today. And I also want you to plug in your answers to the advanced score report for this test and send a copy to us at admin@startutors.net. That's all posted as part of the homework. But again, guys, how did everybody feel? For those that took the test live, can you guys at least give me 2 thumbs up if you feel like generally the strategy worked okay, that you knew what you were supposed to be doing, finding the easy questions? And then again, we have the score reports posted. The advanced score report for April 2019 is posted. I'd like you to fill out the your answer column for that and then send a copy to admin@startutors.net so we can track how you guys are doing throughout the program. Okay, and again, that's all posted for homework, so don't worry about that right now. I just want to know how everybody felt. For those that are watching the live stream, Ty, Diaz, Stephanie, Anna, how'd you guys do? How'd you feel? And then again, for anybody that's watching the recorded lessons later on, let us know how you felt in the comments section just so we can, and again, we'll see how you guys did. So make sure that you, can everybody that's watching live, and then I'll let you guys get out of here, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if it makes sense that I want you to plug in your answers to the April 2019 advanced score report that's posted. The link is posted below the video and in the group, the classroom group. So click on that link, download the April 2019 score report if you haven't already, although you should have from all the other sections we've taken so far, and then fill in your answers and then send a copy to us at admin@startutors.net. Ty, I'm super excited to hear that it felt much better than the practice test. I think that's going to continue to happen. Okay, when you find the easiest questions, it always feels great, and those easy questions, it's not like by answering 33 easy questions and leaving 5 blank, it's not like you get deducted for that. And that's the whole point of this strategy, is we're basically trying to line up all of the easiest questions for you personally, and that varies. Okay, that varies from test to test. You just line up all the easiest questions for yourself, and it's like, yeah, that's always going to feel great, right? It's awesome. Okay, D, I'm glad, right? I really felt that you really liked the 3 pass. I'm telling you that if you guys implement this well, if you continue to work on those drills and then do it in practice tests, and you do it on Saturday, the best thing about it is that when you get tired on a full test, like you will on Saturday for the test, this is section 4, the last section, when you do this method effectively, then you maximize your score even when you feel tired and overwhelmed, because that's going to be even more likely to get stuck on one question and feel like just giving up. This strategy basically allows for you that never to happen. So again, guys, I'm thrilled that we had some of the comments there. If you watch the recorded lessons, let us know how you're feeling, and just posting in the comments below the video. Otherwise, guys, great job today. We'll have the practice test before the next lesson. We'll see the live streamers next Thursday, so no class on Monday. And then everybody else we'll see, and we'll hopefully see everybody on Saturday for the test. And I posted about the test in the group. So great job today, guys. Keep up all your hard work. We'll start focusing on the reading section. We'll do a little bit more math next class, and then we'll focus on the reading section. And yeah, guys, you guys are doing great. Keep it up. Awesome, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on Saturday morning. Or I'll see you guys for the practice test, for the practice test number 2. Awesome, guys. Have a great rest of your day. See ya.